Like many Americans, I make corned beef and cabbage on St. Patrick's Day, despite it not being a particularly Irish meal. And since I apparently don't have the gene that tells you to stop eating corned beef, there are never any leftovers. This year, though, we had the bright idea to get a second cured brisket to hold back and use for sandwiches. What sandwiches? Reuben's, of course, the best possible use of leftover corned beef brisket. There are competing origin stories for this sandwich, a combination of corned beef, sauerkraut, Swiss cheese, and Thousand Island or Russian dressing on rye bread, served warm and toasted. One claims it was invented at Reuben's Restaurant and Delicatessen in New York City. The other claims that it was made by the request of one Reuben Kulakowski during his weekly poker games at the Blackstone Hotel in Omaha, Nebraska. I don't really have a dog in this race, but I kind of like the latter. NYC gets everything else, let's let Omaha have the Reuben. Anyway, back to that extra corned beef. Brilliant, right? Unfortunately, that was where my cleverness ended. I guess I need to pay closer attention at the grocery store, because the rye bread I bought was some kind of thin-sliced diet version. I decided to use the Thousand Island dressing I had on hand instead of making my own Russian dressing, but then it turned out that somehow I'd bought the light version of Thousand Island. Still, even with this flimsy bread and this diet Thousand Island, you couldn't exactly call this a healthy, slimming sandwich. I have ideas about what constitutes the ideal Reuben, but I've had great Reubens that break almost every one of my rules. Rarely, though, have I had an excellent Reuben that breaks this one. A Reuben is a melt and should be treated like one. Cheese on the bottom and the top, and the whole thing cooked up hot, crisp and melty in the griddle. This wasn't a world-class Reuben. Somehow that light Thousand Island dressing was even sweeter than the normal kind. The bread could definitely have stood to be a little sturdier, and I was really missing some of that savory character and horseradishy sting a Russian dressing would have given me. It was a good Reuben, though, and a good Reuben is nothing to complain about.